river watching the morning mist rise off the water like smoke from a campfire. First vacation I'd taken in 3 years, and my phone was buzzing like an angry wasp in my fishing vest. Should have left the damn thing at the lodge, but 15 years at Titan Manufacturing Solutions had trained me to always be available, always reliable, always ready to fix whatever mess someone else had created. I'm Howard Brennan, 54 years old, and I'd just made the biggest mistake of my career by answering that call. "Howard, what the hell are you doing in Alaska when we've got the quarterly system integration due next week?" Shane Morrison's voice cut through the peaceful morning like a chainsaw through silk. Shane was 35, fresh MBA from Wharton, and my new boss for the past 8 months. The kind of guy who thought wisdom came with a business degree instead of decades in the trenches. "My vacation was approved 3 months ago," I said, keeping my voice steady, despite the familiar knot forming in my stomach. "Everything's documented and handed off to Jerry. The integration sequence is automated through the weekend. We don't approve outdated thinking, Howard. The board wants fresh perspectives, not legacy mindset holding us back." I could practically hear him smirking through the phone. "Your methods are from the Stone Age. We need digital transformation, not some antiquated approach that belongs in a museum." Those words hit harder than they should have. I'd built Titan's entire manufacturing integration system from the ground up. Every robotic arm, every conveyor belt, every quality control scanner talked to each other through protocols I'd designed. When I started there at 39, they had 5 separate systems that couldn't communicate. I'd spent 15 years creating a unified language that turned chaos into precision. "Shane, those systems are running at 99.7% uptime because of those antiquated approaches. The new automation modules you want to implement won't work without the legacy bridge protocols I built. Consider this your termination, effective immediately." The line went dead. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, watching my reflection waver in the current, and something strange happened. Instead of panic, I felt this weird sense of relief wash over me, like a weight I'd been carrying for years just lifted off my shoulders. The truth was, I'd been dreading going to work for months. Shane had been systematically undermining everything I'd built, calling it technical debt in board meetings. He'd brought in automation consultants from Silicon Valley who spoke in buzzwords about AI-driven manufacturing optimization, but couldn't explain how their shiny new software would interface with 20-year-old German machinery that still outperformed anything made today. I'd tried explaining it to him. The manufacturing floor wasn't just about having the latest technology. It was about understanding how different generations of equipment could work together, like conducting an orchestra where half the instruments were analog and half were digital. You needed someone who spoke both languages. But Shane saw me as dead weight. Old thinking, a relic from the analog age who didn't understand the digital future. What he didn't understand was that I'd been bridging that gap for over a decade. The future only works when it can talk to the past, and I was the translator. "Trouble?" The voice came from downstream. I'd almost forgotten about the other guy fishing this stretch. Gabriel Torres, maybe 50, quiet confidence about him. We'd been sharing the same pool for 2 hours without saying much beyond nice cast and fish on the left. "Just got fired," I said, reeling in my line. Gabriel nodded like this was the most normal conversation in the world. "Their loss or yours?" I thought about it, really thought about it. The divorce had been finalized 6 months ago. My ex-wife had taken half our savings, and I'd been planning to work another 11 years until retirement. Now I was looking at unemployment at 54, competing against guys half my age who knew Python but couldn't wire a relay. "Theirs," I said finally, and meant it. "Good answer." He waded closer. "Gabriel Torres, Pinnacle Industrial Technologies, CEO." We shook hands in the middle of the river. His grip was firm, calloused. Hands that had actually built things, not just shuffled papers. "Manufacturing?" I asked. "Systems integration consulting. We help companies bridge the gap between legacy equipment and modern automation." He paused, studying my face. "What's your background?" I found myself talking for the next hour. About protocols and machine languages, about the art of making incompatible systems work together, about how manufacturing had become this weird blend of mechanical engineering and software development. Gabriel listened like he actually understood what I was saying. He said as we worked our way upstream, most of these automation consultants come in promising to revolutionize everything. They see a 15-year-old PLC controller and immediately want to rip it out and replace it with something that costs 10 times more and does half the job. Because they don't understand the foundation, I said. They think newer automatically means better. Exactly. But sometimes the foundation is the most valuable part. Sometimes you don't need to rebuild the house. You just need to add a smart thermostat. That conversation changed everything. Gabriel wasn't just making small talk. He was interviewing me without me realizing it, and I was interviewing him right back. That evening, sitting on the lodge deck with a beer and actually relaxing for the first time in months, my phone started buzzing again. Text after text from my colleagues back at Titan. I'd turned the sound off, but the screen kept lighting up like a Christmas tree. Gabriel joined me on the deck, nursing a whiskey. Sounds like your former employer is discovering the difference between having someone and needing someone. I picked up my phone. Jerry Foster, the junior analyst I'd been training for 2 years, sounded panicked in his first message. "Howard, please tell me Shane didn't really fire you." The integration sequence crashed during the test run. Nobody knows how to restart it. "The systems I built don't run themselves," I told Gabriel, scrolling through more messages. "They're not plug and play. They're more like conversations between machines. You need to understand the language. And you're the only one who speaks it fluently?" I thought about how to explain it. See, when I started at Titan, they had this German injection molding system from 1998 that produced perfect parts but couldn't talk to anything else. Then they had a Japanese robotic assembly line from 2005 that was incredibly precise but used completely different communication protocols. Plus an American quality control system from 2010 that spoke yet another language entirely. Gabriel leaned forward, genuinely interested. "So you built the Rosetta Stone?" "Exactly. I wrote custom drivers, built hardware bridges, created translation protocols. But it's not just code. Each system has its own timing, its own quirks. The German system needs exactly 2.3 seconds between commands or it throws a fault. The Japanese robots have to be warmed up in a specific sequence or they lose calibration. The quality scanners need to be synchronized with the conveyor speed down to the millisecond. That kind of institutional knowledge doesn't live in documentation. Shane thought it did. He kept asking me to document everything so it could be handed off to cheaper contractors. I took a long pull from my beer. You can't document 15 years of troubleshooting. You can't write a manual for intuition. Another message popped up from Lisa Rodriguez in operations. 3 production lines are down. Error codes don't match anything in the system database. Shane brought in automation consultants, but they keep making it worse. Gabriel read over my shoulder. "Mind if I ask what those consultants are probably doing wrong? They're treating it like a software problem instead of a manufacturing problem. They see error codes and think they can just Google the solution. But these aren't standard errors. They're symptoms of systems that are trying to communicate but can't understand each other anymore." I scrolled to another message from Nicole Anderson on the board. "Need to discuss recent personnel decisions. Call me." "The board?" Gabriel raised an eyebrow. "They never contact anyone below VP level directly. The fact they're reaching out to me tells me everything." I set the phone aside. Shane must be in full panic mode. We talked until almost midnight. Gabriel had built Pinnacle from nothing 12 years ago, focusing specifically on what he called technology archaeology, helping companies make sense of their accumulated systems instead of ripping everything out and starting over. "Most manufacturing companies are like archaeological sites," he explained. "Layer upon layer of technology from different eras. The key is understanding how each layer supports the next one. Remove the wrong piece and everything collapses." That's exactly what Shane's doing. He sees anything older than 5 years as obsolete. How old is your oldest system at Titan? The core temperature monitoring system is from 1995, still runs perfectly, monitors 47 different zones across the factory floor. Shane wanted to replace it with IoT sensors that cost 50 times more and aren't nearly as reliable. Gabriel nodded. "And let me guess, your integration protocol depends on that temperature data to regulate everything else?" Bingo. The injection molding timing, the cooling cycles, the quality thresholds, everything's tied to those temperature readings. Shane's consultants probably tried to bypass it entirely. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a voicemail from someone I didn't recognize. I played it on speaker. Mr. Brennan, this is Patricia Adams with Morrison Industries. We're Titan's largest client. We need to discuss the production delays affecting our Q4 delivery schedule. The quality metrics we're seeing are concerning. Please call me. Gabriel and I looked at each other. Morrison Industries represented 30% of Titan's revenue. How long before everything completely falls apart? He asked. I thought about it. Shane's team might be able to keep basic production running for another week, maybe 2, but they're probably running manual overrides on everything, which means quality is going to be inconsistent, and they have no idea how to troubleshoot when something goes wrong. Because troubleshooting requires understanding the relationships between systems, right? It's like trying to fix a car engine when you don't know how the transmission affects the timing belt. Everything's connected. Gabriel swirled his whiskey thoughtfully. Howard, I want to be direct with you. Pinnacle has been looking for someone with exactly your background for 6 months. Legacy system integration is a lost art. Most companies have these older manufacturing setups that newer tech guys can't make sense of. They see outdated equipment instead of proven reliability. What kind of companies? Mid-size manufacturers mostly. Family businesses that have been around 20 to 30 years. They've accumulated layers of technology, but never had someone who could make it all work together efficiently. Right now they're choosing between expensive total overhauls or living with inefficiency. There's usually a third option. That's what we sell. The third option, making what they have work better instead of replacing everything. He leaned back. The question is whether you'd be interested in that kind of work. I looked out at the dark water, thinking about my 15 years at Titan. Shane thought he could replace experience with enthusiasm. Turns out machines don't care about your MBA. Gabriel smiled. No, they don't. They care about whether you understand how they think. My phone lit up again. This time it was Shane himself. Howard, maybe we can work something out. The board is asking questions I can't answer. I deleted the message without responding and turned to Gabriel. Tell me more about this third option. When I got back to Phoenix 3 days later, chaos had metastasized. My answering machine was blinking like a police car, and my email inbox looked like it had been hit by a spam bomb. Titan's crisis had gone from internal problem to industry news. The first call I returned was to Patricia Adams at Morrison Industries. Her voice was tight with barely controlled frustration. Howard, thank God. What's happening over there? We've had 3 separate quality failures this week. Parts that should meet spec are coming in undersized. The surface finish on yesterday's batch was completely wrong, and when I called Titan for answers, some kid named Shane told me. These were temporary optimization adjustments. Patricia, I'm not with Titan anymore. Shane terminated me while I was on vacation. The silence stretched for a full 10 seconds. He did what? Fired me. Said my methods were outdated. Your methods? Her voice climbed an octave. Howard, your integration protocols are the only reason we've been able to maintain our delivery schedules. Morrison has been working with Titan for 8 years specifically because of the consistency you built into their systems. I tried to document everything, but documentation doesn't replace experience. We need someone who understands our tolerances, our timing requirements, our quality standards. She paused. Are you available for consulting work? Before I could answer, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see Shane Morrison standing on my porch looking like he'd aged 5 years in the past week. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his tie hung loose, and he kept checking his phone every 10 seconds. Patricia, I have to call you back. I opened the door. Shane tried to force a confident smile, but his hands were shaking. Howard, we need to talk. About what? About fixing this situation. Look, maybe I was hasty. Hasty? I stepped aside to let him in, more out of curiosity than courtesy. Shane, you called my vacation outdated thinking and fired me over the phone. That's not hasty. That's deliberate. He paced around my living room like a caged animal. The automation consultants are having some integration challenges. They're saying the existing systems are more complex than initially assessed. What they're saying is they have no idea how anything works. The board is asking questions I can't answer. Morrison Industries is threatening to audit our quality procedures. 2 other clients are demanding explanations for delivery delays. He stopped pacing and looked at me directly. I need you to come back. As what? Your subordinate who gets blamed the next time something goes wrong? As technology director. Full restoration of your previous authority, 20% salary increase. I almost laughed. Shane, you spent 8 months undermining everything I built. You brought in consultants specifically to prove you could replace me. You told the board I was holding back progress. I was wrong. About what, specifically? He swallowed hard. About thinking newer technology automatically meant better results. About believing that fresh perspectives could replace institutional knowledge. About assuming that documentation could substitute for experience. And about treating you like you were disposable. I sat down in my recliner, taking my time. Shane, do you understand what you actually fired? Not just a person, but 15 years of accumulated knowledge about how those systems think, how they respond to stress, how they communicate with each other. You can't replace that with a consultant who's never seen a manufacturing floor. I know that now. No, you don't. Because if you understood it, you would have understood it before you fired me. I leaned forward. You didn't fire me because of performance. You fired me because my competence made you feel incompetent. His face flushed red. It's exactly that. Every time I solved a problem you couldn't understand, every time a client asked for me specifically, every time the board mentioned the reliability of our systems, it reminded everyone that you were managing something you couldn't actually do yourself. Shane's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and went pale. That's the board. They want a status update on the Morrison situation. What are you going to tell them? That we're working on it, are you? He slumped into my couch. The consultants want to replace the entire legacy infrastructure. They're talking about 18 months of downtime and $2.3 million in new equipment. The board will never approve it, because it's stupid. You don't need new equipment. You need someone who understands the old equipment. Will you come back? Name your terms. No. The word hung in the air like smoke from a gunshot. Why not? Because I found something better. I pulled out the business card Gabriel had given me. Pinnacle Industrial Technologies. They specialize in making legacy systems work better, not replacing them. They value experience instead of fearing it. Shane looked at the card like it was a death warrant. You can't be serious. I start Monday. Senior Technology Integration Officer. 40% salary increase. My own team. Full autonomy over systems architecture. I stood up, plus something you never gave me at Titan. What's that? Respect. Shane's phone buzzed again. This time he didn't even look at it. Howard, if you take that job, Morrison Industries will probably follow you. So will Patterson Manufacturing and Delta Systems. That's 60% of our client base. That's not my problem anymore. You'll destroy Titan. I walked to the door and opened it. Shane, I didn't destroy anything. I built something that lasted 15 years. You destroyed it in 8 months. The difference is, when I build something, I make sure other people can understand it too. When you destroy something, you do it alone. He walked to his car without another word. Through my window, I watched him sit in the driver's seat for 10 minutes, probably trying to figure out what to tell the board. My phone rang again. This time it was Gabriel. Howard, I hope you've had time to think about our conversation. I'd like to discuss specifics if you're interested. I'm very interested, I said, watching Shane finally drive away. When do we start? 6 months later, I was sitting in Gabriel's conference room watching the quarterly numbers that proved everything I'd believed about the value of experience. Pinnacle had landed 8 new contracts, including Morrison Industries, Patterson Manufacturing, and Delta Systems, exactly the clients Shane had predicted would follow me. But it wasn't just about poaching Titan's customers. We were solving problems that other consulting firms couldn't touch. Last month, we'd helped a textile manufacturer in North Carolina integrate their 1987 German looms with modern inventory management software. The week before, we'd saved a family-owned tool company from bankruptcy by making their 30-year-old machining centers communicate with new quality control systems. The difference, Gabriel explained to our newest client, is that Howard doesn't see old equipment as a problem to be solved. He sees it as an asset to be leveraged. That client was Williams Aerospace, a mid-sized defense contractor struggling to meet delivery deadlines because their legacy systems couldn't keep up with modern production demands. Their previous consultants had recommended a complete overhaul that would cost $4.8 million and shut down production for 6 months. I spent 2 days on their factory floor, not in conference rooms. I talked to the machine operators who'd been there 20 years, the maintenance guys who knew every quirk of the equipment, the quality inspectors who could spot problems by sound alone. These people had institutional knowledge that no consultant could replicate. Your problem isn't the age of your equipment, I told their CEO. Your problem is that nobody's teaching the new systems to speak the same language as the old ones. Your 1992 CNC machines are actually more precise than most modern equipment. We just need to build bridges. 3 weeks later, their production efficiency was up 23%. Cost of the integration, $180,000. Williams Aerospace became our biggest advocate, referring us to 2 other defense contractors. Meanwhile, Titan was hemorrhaging. Jerry Foster called me in March, sounding exhausted. Howard, I had to quit. Shane's blaming everyone except himself for the Morrison contract cancellation. He fired 3 people last month, including Lisa Rodriguez. The board brought in new management consultants who are recommending they sell the manufacturing division. What happened to the automation consultants from Silicon Valley? Gone after 2 months and $400,000 in bills. They couldn't make anything work consistently. The German injection molding system has been down for 6 weeks. Shane finally admitted they need someone who understands legacy integration, but nobody with your experience will work for him. In April, I heard through industry contacts that Titan had been acquired by Morrison Industries' parent company for 30% less than their book value. Shane was out, along with most of the management team he'd brought in. The acquiring company's first announcement was that they were looking for experienced systems integration specialists to restore operational efficiency. The irony wasn't lost on me. The call that really validated everything came in June. Nicole Anderson, the former Titan board member, reached out directly. Howard, I owe you an apology. The board should have intervened when Shane started, undermining your authority. We thought we were modernizing. We were actually self-sabotaging. What changed your mind? Numbers. Under your systems, Titan maintained 99.7% uptime for 8 years. After Shane's changes, uptime dropped to 73% in 6 months. Customer satisfaction went from 94% to 67%. We lost $2.3 million in contracts directly attributable to quality and delivery failures. The validation felt good, but what felt better was building something new. Gabriel had given me a team of 5 engineers, all experienced professionals who'd been pushed aside by companies chasing the latest trends. Together, we were developing what Gabriel called integration archaeology, systematically documenting and preserving the knowledge embedded in legacy manufacturing systems. The breakthrough moment came at the National Manufacturing Technology Summit in September. I'd been invited to give a keynote speech on legacy systems integration in the digital age. Standing in front of 400 industry professionals, I realized this was my chance to speak for every experienced worker who'd been told they were obsolete. The manufacturing industry has a wisdom problem, I began. We're so focused on what's new that we've forgotten the value of what works. Every year, companies throw away decades of accumulated knowledge because someone convinced them that old equals obsolete. I clicked to a slide showing Pinnacle's success metrics. In 6 months, my team has helped 12 companies increase efficiency an average of 31% without replacing a single piece of major equipment. The total cost of these improvements was $2.1 million. Complete system replacements would have cost $47 million and required 24 months of downtime. The audience was silent, but I could feel their attention. The secret isn't newer technology. The secret is understanding that progress means building bridges between what you have and what you need. And building those bridges requires something that can't be downloaded, can't be outsourced, and can't be replaced by artificial intelligence. Experience. I paused, looking out at faces that reflected my own journey. Engineers in their 50s and 60s who'd been made to feel irrelevant. Technicians who'd been passed over for promotion in favor of recent graduates. Managers who'd been forced into early retirement to make room for fresh thinking. Your knowledge isn't outdated, it's irreplaceable. And any company that can't see the difference between the two doesn't deserve what you've spent decades learning. The standing ovation lasted almost 2 minutes. Afterward, I was approached by representatives from 15 companies looking for exactly the kind of expertise Shane had thrown away. 3 weeks later, Gabriel offered me a partnership in Pinnacle. Equal ownership, shared decision-making, my name on the business cards. At 54, I wasn't winding down toward retirement. I was building the most rewarding chapter of my career. The final confirmation came in November. Titan's new owners reached out through intermediaries, asking if I'd consider returning as their director of legacy systems integration. The offer included a formal apology, a 60% salary increase, and complete autonomy. I declined politely. Not because I was bitter, but because I'd learned something more valuable than revenge. When you know your worth, you don't need other people's validation to prove it. Getting fired by Shane Morrison was the best thing that ever happened to my career. It forced me to stop accepting less than I was worth and start demanding the respect I'd earned. Sometimes the biggest favor someone can do for you is to stop taking advantage of your loyalty. Experience isn't outdated, it's priceless. And any company smart enough to recognize that difference gets to benefit from everything you've learned. The rest get to watch you succeed somewhere else. The moment you stop accepting less than your worth is the moment you discover how much you're actually worth. And that number is usually a lot higher than the people who've been underpaying you ever wanted you to realize. Your biggest professional mistake isn't getting fired by someone who doesn't value you. It's staying loyal to someone who takes your expertise for granted while they build their career on your back.